What's happening to Jim Carrey right now is often described in online videos and social media posts with phrases like hard to watch or what happened to him. But the real situation is far less dramatic than those emotional headlines suggest, because there is no verified evidence that he is facing any sudden health crisis or hidden tragedy. And instead what is actually happening is a well-documented and intentional shift in priorities from someone who spent decades at the very center of Hollywood fame and has gradually chosen a quieter, more reflective life, especially after an extraordinary career that defined an entire era of comedy and film, with iconic performances in movies such as Ace Ventura, Pet Detective, The Mask, and Dumb and Dumber, where his unique physical comedy, expressive style, and unmatched energy made him one of the most recognizable and highest-paid actors in the world during the 1990s, followed by a successful expansion into more dramatic roles like The Truman Show and Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, which showed a deeper emotional range and established him as more than just a comedic performer. Yet over time Carrey became increasingly open about his dissatisfaction with the pressures of fame, the emptiness he sometimes felt despite success, and his desire to explore life beyond constant public attention, which is why in recent years his appearances have become less frequent and more selective, leading some audiences to mistakenly interpret his reduced visibility as decline rather than personal choice, even though he has repeatedly expressed that he stepped back from Hollywood by intention rather than necessity, focusing instead on painting, writing, philosophy, and personal reflection, all of which have become central parts of his life outside of acting. And while he did return to mainstream audiences with his role as Dr. Robotnik in the Sonic the Hedgehog franchise, even that comeback was framed by him as something he approached selectively rather than as a full return to the industry, reinforcing the idea that he now chooses projects based on interest rather than career momentum. And part of why the hard-to-watch narrative exists around him is because audiences often associate him with the high-energy persona of his peak years, expecting the same constant visibility and comedic presence that defined his earlier career, making his quieter public life feel unfamiliar or concerning when it is actually a reflection of personal evolution. And like many performers who experience intense early fame, Carrey has spoken over the years about the psychological effects of celebrity culture, including periods of depression and existential questioning, which have influenced his decision to step back from the constant demands of Hollywood, not as a collapse but as a recalibration of identity, where creativity is no longer tied exclusively to acting or public performance. And although some rumors and exaggerated online narratives attempt to frame his reduced screen time as something troubling, there is no credible reporting that supports the idea of illness or crisis, and instead what can be observed is a man who has chosen to live more privately, engage in artistic expression outside of film, and appear in public only when he feels it aligns with his personal values, which can naturally look like absence to audiences who remember him as ever-present, but is in reality a deliberate and stable lifestyle shift. And when viewed in full context, his current chapter is not one of tragedy but of transformation, where a globally famous entertainer has stepped away from the intensity of constant fame to pursue a more inward and self-directed life. And while that change can feel emotional or even unsettling for fans who grew up with his performances, it ultimately reflects a broader truth about longevity in entertainment, where not every career continues in a straight upward curve of visibility, and sometimes the most meaningful stage comes after stepping back from the spotlight, choosing peace, creativity, and personal balance over the demands of global celebrity.